We have news that we could see a big shift in the release schedule of iPhones. Apparently we could see the base models launch in the spring and only the Pro models launch in the fall. Yes, you may not believe this, but let's delve in. So this rumor comes from pretty credible source Ming-Chi Kuo, and according to him, beginning with the iPhone 18 series, we could see Apple shift the iPhone 18 and 18e to release in the spring of 2027, and the iPhone 18 Pro, Pro Max, Air and Folds would launch during the regular September timeframe in 2026. So yes, the E model will get a yearly refresh just like the rest of the range, and I'm assuming the same is going to happen with the foldable if that catches on. But why is Apple suddenly deciding to do this, you may ask? Well, Kuo cites two reasons. Number one, Chinese manufacturers usually release their flagships in the first half of the year, and so there's a marketing gap which Apple wants to fix. Essentially, they want to steal their thunder by launching new iPhones in the spring as well. He also says that Apple doesn't want to dilute their marketing efforts, which is a vague way of saying that with Apple releasing more iPhones now, they want each model to get an equal wave of attention. For example, if we see the iPhone Fold next year, that's going to steal the attention, and so the regular iPhone 18 is going to be completely sidelined, hence why Apple thinks releasing that later might be better. This is also going to help with manufacturing because Apple would not have to produce all 6 iPhones at once. What Ming-Chi Kuo says, by the way, was reported by The Information as well, and honestly at first I didn't buy this, but the more I think about it, the more this actually does make sense. We've already seen Apple ship to this release schedule with their Macs. The MacBook Pro gets updated in the fall and the Air gets updated in the spring. And releasing the Pros first means those who are impatient will just pay more to get that, which of course benefits Apple. Timmy wants to upsell you to the Pros however possible, and so releasing them first and making people wait longer for the base model does exactly that. So honestly, I could see this happening. You know what else I could see happening? You clicking that subscribe button. It's free and it would bring you the latest about Apple right to the subscription box, so please consider it. Join the Surround By gang now. Anyway, let's come back to the iPhone 17 series. We have great news, people, because there are new dummy models from Sonny Dixon showing us the iPhone 17 Air is almost as thin as its buttons. That's crazy. So previously, Unbox Therapy showcased a CAD model of the phone, and we saw how substantially thinner this device was, but in Sonny Dixon's leak we can see the Air being compared to the rest of the range. The Air is rumoured to be 5.5mm in thickness, whereas the 17 Pro should be 8.725mm in thickness. And yes, after the iPhone 6 you may be concerned about this bending, but apparently Apple is going to use a mix of aluminium titanium for the chassis to prevent this. And this is the first time we're hearing about this because previous rumors had only stated this device would be made of aluminium. But honestly, the iPhone 6 was a one-off disaster. The M4 iPad Pro is actually even thinner than the rumored iPhone 17 Air, and yet they improved the structural integrity of that device, and so I have faith that Apple can do the same with the 17 Air as well. Apple also went with a 6.6-inch display to prevent it from bending, since the original plan was to make this as big as the Pro Max. Also, what's crazy is that despite its thinness, Apple has managed to fit in camera control, though as rumored this won't have a SIM card slot and will be eSIM only globally. People may also be worried about battery life because of how thin this iPhone is, but not to worry because we have heard about Apple using a higher density battery in this iPhone. Now it makes sense to use this technology with a device that's naturally going to have space constraints because it will be so thin, and so high density battery allows a lot of energy to be stored within a small physical space, allowing Apple to possibly fit in a 4,400 mAh battery in this iPhone, which won't be too bad considering the Plus right now has a 4,674 mAh cell. This combined with the fact we should see the very efficient C1 means battery life should still be solid on the Air in my opinion, so there shouldn't be too many compromises because of its thinness. Really the main omission will be the lack of an ultra-wide or telephoto, but that main sensor should still be the same 14-megapixel lens found on the Pro models, and they've gone with one lens to keep as thin as possible and also preserve space for the battery, which I think is a good move. Anyway, let's talk about groundbreaking changes coming to the Pro models because we have news about a new colour. But it's not just any colour because the Sierra Blue 13 Pro has been reborn, people. We have news that we could see a new sky blue colour option on iPhone 17 Pro, and this gets me tingling. So previously John Prosser told us he had seen a silver, black and white iPhone 17 Pro, and I was pretty disappointed by this news because with Apple switching to aluminium with the iPhone 17 Pro, I thought we could see more exciting colours with the Pro models. and sort of a black and white are not exciting. However, we now have a leak from Ming-Chi Kuo telling us the sky blue shade we saw with the MacBook Air M4 may also come to the iPhone, and while if you mock this up it looks eerily similar to the Sierra Blue iPhone 13 Pro, Ming-Chi Kuo does tell us it'll be a more refined version of that shade. Whatever that means, how exactly can you refine a colour? I have no idea, but he does say it'll be a brighter shades, which I hope is the case because it shouldn't look grey in most lighting conditions. But honestly, as much as I do love Sierra Blue, I do hope we see more saturated finishes as well, similar to the colours we get in the regular models. Ming-Chi Kuo does tell us Apple's testing other colours and nothing has been finalised, so we shall wait and see what Apple ends up doing. Imagine something as punchy as ultramarine on the Pro models, that would be great. If you're hoping to see faster charging iPhones, we have news. That won't be the case with iPhone 17. Analyst Jeff Pugh tells us the complete iPhone 17 range will support 35-watt wide charging, which is about the same as the iPhone 16 series. I know some may be bummed out by this considering many Android phones support 50-watt charging, but honestly I'm not too annoyed by this. I'd much rather Apple give us larger batteries than improve the endurance and make these phones last longer, in which case you would only have to charge overnight anyway, and thankfully that's what we've heard from other leakers. The Air and the Pro Max at the very least should get battery upgrades, but I'm assuming it will apply to the whole range. Now let's move on to the camera. So according to John Prosser, Apple will introduce a new feature where you can record from the front-facing and rear-facing camera at the same time. I say new in quotations because I'm pretty sure you could do this on the Galaxy S4, a phone from 2013. It's nice to see that Apple's finally catching up with the competition, but what's funny is apparently this simple feature is gonna be a Pro exclusive. I understand they want to tout the Pro phones more as a content creation machine, and a feature like this is most useful for creatives, but it's also something the base models should easily be able to do. So I really hope they don't software lock this to the Pro models. By the way, I am aware third-party applications like Snapchat already allow you to do this, but natively offering this would be great too. And as I said, it is about time. Next, let's talk about the telephoto on iPhone 17 Pros. So for those unaware, we have heard a lot about a new 48 megapixel telephoto lens coming to this year's Pro models. This was the last lens still on 12 megapixels, as the main camera had moved to 48 megapixels with the 14 Pro, and the ultra wide had moved to 48 megapixels with the 16 Pro. Now with the telephoto switching to 48 megapixels, Apple plans to apparently offer 3.5x optical zoom instead of the 5x currently offered on the 15 and 16 Pro Max. You may think this sounds like a downgrade, but 3.5x optical zoom is equivalent to 85mm, which is better suited for portraits, and that's what most use a telephoto for in the first place. Also do remember, like the main 48 megapixel sensor with its 2x digital crop, having a higher resolution telephoto means digital zoom is going to get a lot better, and so you can still zoom in and get high resolution photos with this new 17 Pro. You also get a max of 25x digital zoom with the 16 Pro Max, so maybe expect this to be 30 or 40x with the 17 Pro Max, whilst offering higher quality photos at those higher zoom levels. Now let's dive into new cases showing us the ginormous camera module on the 17 Pro. These case leaks come courtesy of Sonny Dixon, who's a pretty credible source, and the cases themselves aren't very exciting. They're just regular clay cases that have MagSafe. However, you can see there is a cutout that spans the entire width of the device, but that's going to encompass the familiar triple lens camera on the left, but the LiDAR scanner, mic and flash will now move to the right side. By the way, if you're wondering why Apple's giving us such a huge camera bump on this year's iPhone, I think it's because of the new telephoto lens. Obviously, the telephoto will have to be stacked sideways into the device, so maybe more space is required, hence why they're moving the LiDAR, mic and flash to the right, and they're giving us this much bigger camera bar. Now, the regular iPhone 17 doesn't look very different and is near identical to the iPhone 16, but we have a case for the iPhone 17 Air that shows us the visor camera bar similar to Pixel devices. However, as I'd mentioned earlier, there is only one camera lens on the left side of the device, and the mic and flash will be on the right. Now, there is no cutout below the camera bar on the 17 Air, which does make me think the back panel is going to be completely glass, similar to current iPhones, and only the camera bar could be aluminium. We can also see MagSafe assist, so for those worrying this might be too thin to fit MagSafe, thankfully that's not the case. And as I mentioned earlier, this does have space for the action button as well as camera control. So yes, despite it being 5.5mm in thickness, you are still getting flagship hardware features, even though camera control is pretty useless, so I wouldn't have cared if they removed it. Finally, we have news about RAM. So initially, rumors were stating we would only get 12 gigs of RAM on the Pro models, which would make sense because Apple in the past has differentiated the Pro and regular models by giving them different amounts of RAM. However, it now seems that all iPhone 17 models are getting 12 gigs of RAM as standard. and I'm guessing Apple's doing this because Apple Intelligence is going to continue becoming a bigger part of iOS, and so having that additional RAM is going to be beneficial. And whilst it won't make a huge difference to the overall experience, I am glad Apple's giving us more RAM because it will help future-proof these devices. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.